Hey everybody, we are back. It's Bookends 2023, the football version. I can't believe that football season is less than a month away. That opening Thursday night game, Lions, Chiefs. Lions? Opening Thursday? Less than a month away. It's going to be fun, Jay.
Oh, I don't want to get to Lions Chiefs yet. We've got a full preseason left to go. We got a lot of baseball, a lot to cover, a lot going on before we get to full-blown football season. But it's great to be back and filming Bookends again.
It is great to be back with you guys and really kind of have some fun this season like we have in the past, and just give you guys some kind of insight and stuff that's going on. And of course, if you guys have any questions, you can always send them in, and we'll try to address them on the air as well. We're here at the Red Rock Racing Sportsbook, kind of the calm before the storm. This is the first full week of preseason football, but as Jay mentioned, before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit of Women's World Cup. I mean, kind of the stunning loss by the USA in the quarterfinal, the round of 16 to Sweden. Defensively, they were stout. Offensively, not so much.
Yeah, really kind of started in the group stage where we saw them with one win and two draws, not what we would normally see out of the U.S. women. So as much as this was shocking and they were the favorites to win the tournament, they didn't play well in the group stage. And then obviously to not be able to score against Sweden and lose in the penalty kick shootout, and obviously with some big missed kicks by some of USA's biggest stars, just shocking. But as we move forward, it's not over with. Obviously, still good soccer to be played outside of the United States women's team. England is now the favorite to win it all, but it's a really tight grouped pack of teams. Spain, Japan directly behind them. This Japan team, 11 goals in the group stage, only allowing one. They upset Sweden they upset Spain in that group stage with a 4-0 win over Spain, which is a big upset for Japan to be able to beat them. So they have a lot of confidence going in it. They do have to play this Sweden team, who obviously is going to have a ton of confidence right now. But look for England, although Lauren James, England's best scorer, is going to be out against Nigeria in the final 8 matchup due to having a red card. So, they have some stuff that they have to play around as well. But enjoy the rest of the World Cup games, and I think that we're in for some good action here.
Yeah, I do too. It'll be a lot of kind of cool stuff to wager on as we move forward as well in the World Cup. Let's move into baseball a little bit now. Trade deadline wasn't that far away. There was teams that made some big moves, some that made some small moves, and some who didn't make moves at all that we thought would be. Since the All-Star break, the two hottest teams in baseball, Orioles and Cubs. On the flip side, the Angels, a team that was all in, gave up maybe the number one prospect in all of baseball, young catcher to the White Sox for Giolito. They've now lost 7 in a row. Teams are kind of trending the opposite way right now since the break.
Yeah, I think if we look at this past week in baseball, I'll call it the hot and the not. And we've got teams that are making their moves to put themselves in the playoffs, and we got a couple teams that have really had a tough week that have put them on the outside looking in. Right. You talked about it. The Angels, they've lost 7 in a row. They keep Ohtani. They make some moves to pick up the Rockies guys in Grichuk and Crone. They pick up Giolito, and they look like they're making all the moves, and then they go lose 7 straight here to really put themselves behind the 8 ball as far as making a playoff run.
Especially with the Rangers playing so well.
The Marlins have lost 5 in a row and have been really bad since the All-Star break. And surprisingly, the Diamondbacks have lost 6 in a row. Despite the decent pitching and the young kids there, they've hit their struggles of late, putting Miami and Arizona outside of the playoffs, now chasing Philadelphia. And it's really been, like you talked about, the Cubs, putting them back in. As far as the hot side, we got a couple more teams that have been hot. You talked about the division leaders. Texas, 7 wins in a row, have now overtaken the Astros with the division lead. Baltimore has been absolutely fantastic. We continue to watch kind of Tampa struggles, and Minnesota has separated themselves in the Central, winning 5 straight. And then we have 2 teams battling for those wild card spots in the Mariners that have won 5 in a row, and Toronto that has won 4 in a row. So you see these battles going on, and obviously you talked about the trade deadline, the pitchers and everything that moved. So I think that the rest of baseball season, obviously we sit here midweek, but looking forward to this weekend's matchups that we're going to go through a little bit later. I mean, it's getting down to crunch time where you can feel the pressure in each and every game of these wins going in. We still have all the home run props and pitcher props and hitter props. It's absolutely amazing the amount of props that we have on the board for baseball. So get on the app and check out all the stuff that we have on baseball right now.
It definitely is fun this time of year with baseball, and And like you said, the Angels who lose 7 in a row, the thing that really hurts them right now is they're in the same division with not only the Astros, but as well as the Rangers have played that have won 7 in a row, and Seattle's now won 5 in a row. So you're really chasing teams in your own division as well as the wild card spot. So it's really hurt them a lot. You look at the Cubs, for an example. It was rumored, going into the trade deadline that Bellinger and Stroman would both be available. They started playing really well and got hot beforehand. They did not deal those guys. Other teams made some tweaks as well, but Rangers are really the team right now that I think is the team to beat. When you look at them at home, 40-20. Best team, best record in baseball at home. On the flip side, only one game above 500 on the road. So getting that number 1 seed in the American League, I think, would be paramount to the Rangers.
Yeah, and they go make some pitching additions. The biggest pitching addition, though, in their division was Houston acquiring Verlander from the Mets. They get Scherzer, so they steal from the Mets in that division, where those guys are going to go head-to-head, and I think we're going to see that Texas Astro matchup the rest of the year is going to be a battle to see who can come out of that division.
It's going to be fun if they do match up in the playoffs and you've got a playoff game with Verlander against Scherzer. So, for you Met fans, I'm sure you're going to be really depressed when you see that because you expected to see them pitch in the postseason. It'll just be for different teams. Sorry, Simple, I had to throw that in there. And you too, Pomp. But anyway, now football. Let's talk a little bit about football. We had the Hall of Fame game this past week. It's funny, but it's a Hall of Fame game where we know that they're honoring a lot of these talented guys from the past who are having an opportunity to move into the Hall of Fame. And you think about the first football game, a lot of guys aren't going to play, but it's amazing. I think it kind of signals that football is here. You see such an uptick in handle, just kind of an increase in atmosphere in the book. People are betting more of the props and things like that. And you got to see this game kick off, and we got to see DTR play in that game, which was huge.
We talk about the star of the Hall of Fame game, DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, drafted
from Gorman,
by the Browns, played at Bishop Gorman, played 5 years at UCLA, actually stole the show in the second half. Incredible block to spring a running back for a touchdown. His legs were very useful running all over the field. I think he had almost 40 yards running, another 80 yards passing, throws a touchdown pass. So great to see him. And again, looking at that Browns team and what they're going to do the rest of the preseason, if they're going to give that amount of time to Dorian, or he's going to get those third and fourth quarters, he's going to have a chance to go steal some games for the Browns in the preseason. And we talk about preseason football betting. I've heard you talk countless number of times about how do we handicap the preseason and what are we looking at in the preseason, and we talk about quarterback rotations and who's going to be playing, who's not going to be playing, and several teams have come out and said, hey, our starters are playing, or this guy's going to get a series or two, and you look at that quarterback depth, and we talk about quarterback depth and how these teams are going to score in the preseason. But I think the number one handicapping tool when we talk about the preseason is going and looking at coaches and the coaching resume and what they want to do in the preseason.
There's one guy that believes in the preseason, right?
Well, the Ravens are on a 23-game winning streak
in preseason.
In the preseason. They've won 23 preseason games. So clearly John Harbaugh, who's in his career is 42-12, but they're on a 23-game win streak. The Ravens clearly want to win preseason games, and Harbaugh's clearly made that known, and his team follows that. And Sean McDermott with the Bills is 12-6 in his career. Not a ton of games, but again, wants to win them. Pittsburgh, Tomlin is 37-24. However, the last 5 years, the Steelers are 15-4 in their last 5 years of preseason games. So it seems like Tomlin's made a little bit of a flip that the Steelers want to win those games. And then a couple of the first-year coaches from last year that may be starting a resume that they want to do. Raiders, McDaniel, the Raiders were 4-0 in the preseason last year. For Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell, they were 0-3 last year, so maybe the Vikings are a bet against. And Chicago, Eberflus, they were 3-0 last year in the preseason. So look at those coaching resumes, figure out if your coach wants to win preseason games or if he just doesn't care, and you might see your team not play all their guys in the preseason.
I think I think all those things factor in. I think even when you look at a new coach this year, like Sean Payton in Denver, you look at the struggles that Denver had last year. Here they play against Arizona, who many people think might be the worst team in the league with the injury to Murray. They might be picking number one. You've already seen that line go up in preseason, 2.5 points. Adjustments you don't normally see during the regular season. You look up and down the preseason slate for week one, the first full week, you see games that have moved 3-4 points or more, which is so uncharacteristic. And I think a lot of coaches are looking, maybe new coaches, or first time for those teams, change the narrative. We didn't achieve what we wanted to achieve last year. Denver clearly was that Vogue team. before the season started with the Russell Wilson trade. They were a major disappointment. Sean Payton's already gone in there and said, no, you guys are playing. You're going to be on the sideline. We're in this to win it. And I think you're going to see a lot of those games start to tick up in the preseason.
Yeah, and you're starting to see rookie quarterbacks that
Right.
we are expecting to be starters in Stroud and Richardson. That these guys, these guys they want to get them as much time on the field, as many reps as they possibly can. So how long do those guys? They don't want them to get hurt, but they want them to get that game pace. They want them to get that game feel.
Because it's such a different league now, Jay, and we've talked about it. You don't draft these guys in the first, 3, 4, 5 picks to sit on the bench. It just doesn't happen. Jordan Love is fortunate where, he went in the first round, later in the first round, but he got to sit behind Rodgers for 3 years before he kind of gets his first opportunity. So many of these kids are kind of thrust into the fire, expected to produce and perform day one. And I think with Richardson, Young, and Stroud, that's going to be the expectation level. I think all 3 guys start game one.
Then there's the flip side of that is watching Joe Burrow get injured in practice and his calf getting injured, and now all the coaches in the league say, I can't play my guys because I don't want to be dealing with that. So you're playing with a double-edged sword there.
It's the nature of the beast in football, but yeah, I totally agree.
So we'll see, and that's what makes betting the preseason so difficult. So again, I go back to know what your coach likes to do.
Well, that's just a little teaser. Not our little mascot. That's just a little teaser for football. We're going to be right back with our second segment and really dive into some kind of cool and interesting storylines for football season, guys. We'll be right back on the Sports Betting Podcast, Bookends.
Guess what? It's football season, baby. And you know what that means. It's time to bet your buns off. And when it comes to sports betting, you better bet with the STN Sports App. I'm talking football, all the fights, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer ball. We've got it all. And with our 14 convenient sign-up locations around town, it's no wonder they call me the Queen of Convenience. Because when I bet with STN, I feel like royalty. So what in the heck are you waiting for? Download the STN Sports App today and trust the local favorite.
Hey everybody, we're back here at Red Rock. It's Jason, I'm Chucky with the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, and we gave you a little teaser about football. Now I think we're ready to jump into it. But before we do, don't forget, it's football season, and that means contest time. Last man standing. Our pro football, we guarantee $150,000. College football, $100,000. Get signed up for Last Man Standing. Same format. You pick five. You pay for 4 games, right? Four signups at $100. You get the 5th one free. So for $100, you get 5 entries. You win, you move on. You lose, and that entry goes home. But again, $150,000 guaranteed in the pros, $100,000 guaranteed in college.
Got all the way till September 9th, so that first week of college football is not included in the contest,
Right.
So it starts that first week of the pro season. So come in and get both the college contest and the pro contest. And if you don't have the app, get signed up for the app while you're here, signing up for the contest. We've got the $500, up to $500 bonus going on right now. That means if you deposit $5,000, play through your $5,000, you're going to earn a $500 bonus. It's basically 10%. So deposit $1,000, you earn $100. It's unbelievable that you can earn that kind of money from a bonus just for depositing and signing up.
And we know there's a lot of great contests out there, and I get it, but we're not talking about getting in for $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000. $100 entry gets you 5 entries into the pro. $100 entry gets you 5 entries in the college. So get signed up for Last Man Standing. 2 great contests. So now we're going to jump into some kind of storylines for this football season. First one, quarterback leap. Who's going to take that kind of jump that we've seen? And when you think about it, in Josh Allen's 3rd year, what did the Bills go out and do? They went out and got him Stephon Diggs. Jalen Hurts' 3rd year. What did the Eagles go out and do? They went out and got him A.J. Brown. This is Trevor Lawrence's 3rd year. It's Justin Fields' 3rd year. The Jags go out and they get Calvin Ridley. We know he was suspended last year for off-the-field issues. The Bears go out and get DJ Moore. So I think when you look at both those quarterbacks, they're both in a position to kind of take the leap that maybe we saw Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts take.
Yeah, I'm all in with you on Lawrence and Fields. I think these are, you talk about that 3rd-year quarterback and the ability to take the leap.
But they give him help, and that's the key.
Yeah, part of the question is under the most pressure.
Right.
Like, is Lawrence under the most pressure to take the leap? Is Fields under the most pressure? And with those 2 guys, I feel like Fields has got to be under more pressure because the Bears gave up that number 1 pick.
Right.
They said Justin Fields is our quarterback of the future. Giving up this number 1 pick, we're going to trade it with Carolina, get DJ Moore in that trade. So there's a little bit of pressure on Fields. But I think that the quarterback for me, there's several quarterbacks under a ton of pressure this year. I'm going to start with Russell Wilson, who was absolutely inept last year for the Broncos, traded from Seattle, go to the Broncos, absolutely played terrible. 7 TDs, or Wilson, 16 TDs, 11 interceptions. The Broncos were awful. Now bringing Sean Payton, revamping the offense. Sean Payton's Saints teams were no worse than a top 5 offense the entire time that he was in New Orleans, or the last 5 years that he was in New Orleans. So big pressure on Russell Wilson to see if he's truly Russell Wilson and can earn that $245 million contract that the Broncos have planned for him. But then I think about...
Well, with them, though, don't forget they have Sutton, Hamler, Judy. They've got kind of the pieces, Greg Deutsch at tight end. They've got some young receivers that can help Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but, they're still predicted to be third in the division, behind Kansas City, behind the LA Chargers, but there's still a lot of pressure for Wilson to earn this contract. And I think about, is there anybody else that has this contract they have to live up to? And I think about Deshaun Watson, who's got a $230 million guaranteed contract with the Browns, only played 6 games last year, didn't really get anything going. He was 183 yards a game. The Browns, go get Elijah Moore from the Jets, who in 2021 was absolutely fantastic. They draft Tillman. We'll see what that offense can do. I think he's under a lot of pressure. But I'm going to throw out the guy that's under the most pressure, and I'm going to go back to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys and the pressure that you have as Dak Prescott. He led the league in interceptions last year with 15 interceptions. There's so much pressure on the Dallas Cowboys because the Eagles and the Niners are we'll call it the top 2 teams in the NFC, but as the third team, it's probably the Cowboys. And there's a lot of people that think the Cowboys can make this run. They let go of Kellen Moore. Mike McCarthy's going to take over the play calling. We're going to see Tony Pollard at offense. Really didn't do anything to get Cooks from a receiving standpoint, but I really, really think that the quarterback under the most pressure is Dak Prescott this year.
I'm going to go for a quarterback in the AFC. He used to play in the NFC. He used to wear number 12. Now he wears number 8, and he's in the Big Apple. And I think it's Aaron Rodgers. They also gave him a lot of money. Gave up a lot. You're talking about a team that had a top 5 defense, was, I think, 4th in the league in giving up the fewest amount of points, 4th in yards per play, an offense, though, that ranked 25th. Only the Colts, Broncos, and Texans scored less points than what the Jets did last year. The Jets only averaged 17.4 points a game. So I think you're asking Aaron Rodgers, hey, you've got young skill position players in a Garrett Wilson, in a Breece Hall, a top 5 defense. Can you get us over the hump? Yet he comes into this and he's in the same conference now with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. He's in a much tougher conference than what he played in. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure right now on Aaron Rodgers to get the Jets to the next level just because the team is so good.
Well, I know neither of us ever cheered for Aaron Rodgers. As Bears fans, Packer fan, there was never a hint of me ever cheering for Aaron Rodgers. But Mike White and Zach Wilson were atrocious last year for the New York Jets. And if you went and watched those games, you talked about that fourth-ranked defense, and that fourth-ranked defense was going up against those same Bills and Dolphins that were throwing the balls all over the place, and I think they got splits against both those teams last year with those guys at quarterback. So if Rodgers can come in and be 80% of what he is with Aaron Rodgers, let alone lift Garrett Wilson to another height, keep Breece Hall healthy, I think the Jets are in for a big year. They have a very, very difficult schedule. The first 6 games are very tough, all against winning teams. If they can kind of split out, get to a 3-3, 4-2 in those first 6 games, I think that we can see this team. We're at 12 years since they've made the playoffs. It's the longest drought in the NFL for them making the playoffs.
It's not only the longest drought in the NFL, they are now the longest drought in the 4 major sports. It was the Sacramento Kings who made the playoffs. So if you're a Gang Green fan and you're a Jets fan and you went out and got Aaron Rodgers, you are most certainly expecting that drought ends and they go to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think they go to the playoffs, but I won't be surprised at all if it starts off with a 3-3 and then we have to hear the Aaron Rodgers relax. And we'll get there and then watch them play good the second half of the season.
I still think because of that, because the defense is so good and they have some really talented young skill position players, there is so much pressure on him. And you're in that same division with the Bills. And you look at Tua last year, and I know the injuries, we don't know if he's going to stay healthy again this year, but with those wideouts and Hill and Waddle, I'm not sure that the Jets aren't the third best team in the AFC East. And I think there's a lot of pressure on him to really get past that first 6 games and see how good they can be. Because if they aren't a playoff team, it is a major failure in the Big Apple.
Again, I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I don't cheer for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers feels pressure. I think he's a veteran in the league. What he's gone through in Green Bay, what he's had to endure, I don't think the New York press is going to get to him. If anything, he's going to find himself enamoring the New York press with his jokes and stuff, and go to a hut for 3 days.
It's all fine and dandy.
Starve himself, and he'll find a way to make things work.
I think all the joking's fine and dandy if they win, if they're winning and they're playing good, and the season hasn't started yet. But I'm going to go back to what I always say. Aaron Rodgers has the same amount of NFC Championship wins as Rex Grossman, so he should feel some pressure.
Now he's in the AFC.
Well, we will see. We will see what he does. But I think there's some great, storylines for this football season. I think, and you and I kind of talked about it before we jumped on, is, 2 teams that won in each conference that really aren't getting that respect this year that have in the past. I know you wanted to touch on the AFC.
Well, you were talking about what teams have surprised us from the amount of tickets that are being bet on them from a future book
or lack
standpoint.
of tickets.
And when I was going through and looking at the ticket counts, I was really not shocked at any of the ticket counts being bet on teams. I was shocked at the ticket counts not being bet on teams. The Raiders clearly lead our ticket count.
Big surprise.
Most ticket count. But for me, it was the Ravens. They're one of the least bet teams in our future book, and I was shocked by it. I mean, Lamar Jackson signs the huge contract. They go get Odell Beckham Jr. They draft Zay Flowers. Their new offensive coordinator.
Bateman should be back healthy again this year.
They get the offensive coordinator from the Georgia Bulldogs, who obviously their offense was fantastic. I know it's the college rank, but it's not going to be the same old Ravens. I don't think it's going to be the same old Lamar Jackson, the J.K. Dobbins, the Gus Edwards. I think we're going to see them throw the ball around a little bit more. Now, granted, got to play with Cleveland, got to play with Cincinnati, even the Steelers. That division is very, very tough. But I was really shocked at the lack of respect for the Ravens to make some noise this year and potentially make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I looked at the NFC, and maybe I'm not stunned by it, but they've been so popular over the last 15 or 20 years. It's the lack of I'm not going to say respect, but the lack of tickets on the Green Bay Packers. I know we talked about Rodgers going to the Jets and Jordan Love taking over there, but they have the least amount of tickets to win the NFC North. And then you look at them on in the NFC, the only teams that they have more tickets than are the Commanders, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, and the Panthers. Every other team in the NFC has more tickets than them, and they're not even in the top, I think, 10 or top 15 to win the Super Bowl. So not a lot of respect right now for the Green Bay Packers. I think most people think they're the 4th best team in the NFC North.
I couldn't agree more with our faithful guests on not betting the Packers.
We're bashing
the
Packers.
In the fact with, Detroit, Minnesota, and Chicago clearly are all better than the Packers this year. It's a lot to put on Jordan Love. They're going to have to depend on the running game. They've got the young kids.
Really young
in
wideouts,
Watson
too.
And Dobbs.
Yep.
But I agree. Don't bet the Packers. Save your money. Keep those tickets and look for somewhere else.
And all you cheeseheads and Packer fans can really come back at us because week 1, the Packers and Bears play. So if the Packers end up winning that game, we'll be the ones with egg, but, it is what it is. But I think there's a lot of really good storylines. This is our first kind of kickoff special for Last Man Standing. Wanted to get into some of these cool storylines, but there's just some really interesting stuff
the running backs
going on. Oh, running backs. We talk about, too, that all the drama surrounding the running backs, you go back 5-10 years, running backs were the guy. That was the position that everybody take. I think the highest that was taken before Bijan Robinson this year was Saquon Barkley. So running backs aren't looked at the same way. It's kind of, do they ever get that second contract or not? You've got guys like Pollard and Jacobs and Barkley, who right now are like in flux a little bit. Jonathan Taylor, they're looking for that second big contract, and so many teams go by committee. Delvin Cook who can't even get a job right now, still is unsigned, was one of the best running backs in football. So the drama surrounding the running backs has really changed dramatically over the last decade.
Yeah, and when we look at what the running backs have to do to kind of stand out this year and what running backs are going to jump up, and obviously everybody's starting to do their fantasy football prep work and what are the running backs going to do, and it really makes it difficult when we talk about Barkley potentially getting that franchise tag, obviously signing for the $11 million, but when we don't know what's going to happen with Jacobs, and you don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. You talked about Dalvin Cook. Where is he going to sign? Kareem Hunt potentially
looks like with the Saints,
going to the Saints with Kamara being suspended.
But wait, let me interrupt one second.
Mixon takes a pay cut to stay with the Bengals.
Think about Cook. I think he made $13.5 million last year. The contract with the Vikings, I believe, was around $15 million. Wasn't guaranteed. They cut him. The Dolphins offered him a 2-year deal at $8 million, $4 million per year. So I think that kind of puts it into perspective. You talked about Barkley, signing the franchise tag. Josh Jacobs was offered $12 million and turned that down. So it's just such a different kind of position anymore. And so many teams go by committee. I mean, we know guys like Christian McCaffrey is just at a different level because he can be on the field for all 3 downs. And he's such a great pass-catching running back. But running back is just not an elite position right now because teams are going at it with a multitude of backs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these guys. But it's from a standpoint of bookmaking and handicapping, the Raiders without Jacobs are not anywhere close to the power rating that they currently have. The Colts without Taylor and the rookie quarterback, that could be a scary bad team. Obviously, the Cowboys go get Pollard. Barkley signs with the Giants. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't play for the Colts, and for some reason they trade him, there's rumors now that could be going to the Chiefs.
Right.
Jonathan Taylor on the Chiefs makes the Chiefs
scary,
twice as scary as they already are. So some big news to follow here over the next 2 or 3 weeks as we see how this running back situation shakes itself out.
Dalvin Cook has been rumored at 2 teams in the AFC East, both the Jets and Dolphins, potentially a bidding war. We're not sure how healthy Breece Hall will be. He's still on the pup. Will he be ready to go week 1 for the Jets? And the Dolphins have got a multitude of running backs. Do they add a Dalvin Cook to that running back room or not? So football's been really good. We've talked about kind of what the impact is. We know there's young quarterbacks in Richardson, Young, and Stroud. We've talked about teams that have been lack of respect. We're gonna wait till next week before we dive into fantasy a little bit. But I think we have to kind of finish up a little bit with baseball in the coming week, Jay, is just some of the matchups that we're going to see, this week with as good as some teams are playing and some poorly as some teams are playing. To me, the one that really, really stands out is Houston and Baltimore this week. I mean, I think it's a tremendous matchup, and can Baltimore really start playing with the big boys right now and show that they're worth the spot as the top team in the American League?
Baltimore has had to do it over and over again. They just finished up the series with Tampa, where they played good. Now they head to Houston, and then after Houston, they head to Seattle, another team that's battling in that playoff position. They picked up Flaherty from the Cardinals. The Orioles have really been the story of the second half here with the move that they've made. Felix Bautista has been absolutely fantastic
Lights
on
out.
the back end for them. And a big series. You said it gets Houston finishing up here and then heading to Seattle.
You've got, I think the D-backs and Dodgers play each other, which is another kind of, big series. Can the D-backs kind of get it turned around a bit as well? But I think this second half now, of course, with the newer format, with the more wild card teams, is really going to be interesting to see who gets hot and who doesn't.
Yeah, and you have to do the job against the teams that you're supposed to beat. So when you get a chance in the AL to play the White Sox and the Tigers, or playing the Pirates, these teams have to go win these games. So like this upcoming weekend, the Cincinnati Reds go visit the Pirates. This is a big series for them. They've got to be able to go win those games against the Pirates because the Cubs are playing Toronto. So that makes a big move there that they can, maybe trade some paint and be able to leapfrog positions there. Other big matchups, Texas against the Giants.
Great.
Again, we have the Rangers battling the Astros. San Francisco is currently sitting in that wild card spot, but obviously has a ton of teams chasing them. You talked about Arizona playing the Dodgers this midweek. On the weekend, they host the Padres. So again, Padres are really on the outskirts looking in. Would have to go on a heck of a run to get themselves in the wild card. But they're still a dangerous team with a dangerous pitching staff, and obviously we know those hitters, and Arizona has really been scuffling, so a big series there. And then one of the ones that I'm really looking at is the Yankees and Marlins. Marlins have dropped 5 in a row. However, that just puts them 1 game out of the wild card spot. The Yankees have been win, lose, and a team that really needs to get on a winning streak to start making up some ground, because they've got to pass Boston, Toronto are all ahead of them, Seattle. But with Rondon now out, and their pitching staff with Herman being out, Servino being terrible, I don't know where they go. I don't know where they're going to get the wins to find themselves back in this wild card race.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, guys. So, keep a lookout for all the props we have up with the baseball games. And I think before we finish, we got to switch gears a little bit and go to our own backyard, and that's the WNBA with the defending champs, the Aces, who just had a really, really bad loss against the Liberty this week. And you look at the Aces and the Liberty, best team in the East, best team in the West. Aces win earlier this season, score 98 points. Liberty scores 99. These two teams still have 2 games left this month, both in Vegas, but they really look to be on a collision course for the WNBA title.
Well, we had the Aces very heavily favored, and then obviously this week getting the out of them by the Liberty. That lowered a little bit, and the Liberty came up. Obviously, the Liberty not intimidated by this Aces team. They want to play them, and I think this is a matchup that we're going to look to see for the rest of the season.
From a liability standpoint, we do not do good on the Aces and do extremely well on the Liberty. So just something to think about from the business side of it, but a very tough loss for the Aces in that game.
As we're talking about butt whoopings, you want to square up and maybe do a slap off this week before we hit Powerslap 4 this week. I'm really excited for Powerslap 4. The Powerslap has been absolutely fantastic. We've had the 3 events that lead up to Powerslap 4, highlighted by AJ Static Hints, and he's going up against Austin Terp Daddy.
The nicknames
Turpin.
are outrageous.
And this guy, Hints has been in this championship realm since going back to Slap Fight 1.
Right.
Light heavyweight champion, beats Russell Rivera by disqualification after getting knocked out because he lifted his foot. Then Ron Bata, who was the heavyweight champion, gets beat by DeBell. So Bata comes down to the light heavyweight division and beats Hints in Powerslap 3. And now Austin Slim Daddy Turpin, and this kid's had a meteoric rise, 3-0. 2 of those wins have been by first round knockouts. He's going to be loud on the canvas there. He's going to come out and talk a lot of stuff, and I have a feeling that Hints is not going to back down in the talking battle, and these guys are going to go back and forth at it. I opened up Hints, the favorite in the match, because he has first slap. The slap off has now gone to a pick'em just because Terp Daddy has had such a following, and he's done it with just an incredible manner here. He knocked out Klingbeil.
This is all on the app.
All in the app. He knocked out Klingbeil in the first slap. He knocked out Dozier in the first slap, and he beat Cody Cox. So he had 3 impressive wins. But I think he's fighting a guy on a whole nother level here in Hints. And this is Tune In, Rumble, Powerslap 4. Going to be absolutely incredible. And the other one, Amir Nurdine is fighting Wesley. Amir, the comeback kid, Nurdine, versus Wesley Aldedrain Smoke. Smoke's a veteran of Powerslap. He lost his last fight to the champion, John Davis. And I think those are the 2 top guys in the middleweight division.
Wait a minute, no nickname for John Davis?
I don't know what John Davis' nickname is. But Nurdine lost in Powerslap 3 to Ariel Rodriguez by a second-round knockout. And now he's going up against the guy that in his last fight lost to the champ. So I think there's a little bit of a mismatch here. I like Wesley draining that matchup. And there's about 8 matchups on the card. Again, it's going to be fantastic. If you haven't caught a Powerslap,
you got to catch it.
If you haven't caught a Powerslap, tune in. Some people love it, some people don't, but it's something you should definitely watch at least once.
As you can tell, he clearly doesn't. No. But really, guys, I think you can tell from the excitement in our voice that, number one, first, we're glad to be back with you guys. We're glad that Bookends is going to be back, a weekly segment, maybe sometimes twice a week, depending on what's going on. But you can tell in our voices, we're excited. Football season's here. There's so much going on. Don't forget Last Man Standing, college and pro, the 100,000 guaranteed in the college, 150 in the pro. Don't forget to get signed up for STN Sports, up to a $500 bonus. Just a fun time of year for us.
It's the best time of year. This is this is preparation. Get yourself ready. Get yourself signed up for the app. Get yourself a deposit into the app. Get yourself signed up for the contest, and be ready to roll for that week 1.
So I'm not going to slap him, just going to slap him, but we are here at Red Rock Racing Sportsbook again. Jason, Chucky, we look forward to seeing you guys every week on the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends. Good luck, and we will see you guys soon.